Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning into episode 456 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always. The hawk-eyed amongst you will have spotted that we are in interview format again, in interview mode, and I think I need to stop saying that I have somebody special that I'm interviewing, because actually every single person is special. The thing is to find out, to convey to you the key that makes them special. Everybody's special in their own way. And it's actually quite difficult to find the starting point of this particular duo's story to present to you. It is a duo, so I think what I will do is just start simple, and then you will see, hopefully, over the course of the next hour or so, how many twists and turns there are in the story, how many crazy coincidences, and also, hopefully, we will actually get a chance to talk about some perfume and do some smelling. So, to keep this thing simple, I have got in my studio, and I'm about to introduce to you in a few moments, Clara Feder and Michel Gutsatz, husband and wife, co-founders, but founders in inverted commas, or revivers, of Le Jardin Retrouve. Before they came to the perfume world, they had, and I think still have, completely different careers in their own right. I've got a brief biog here. Clara majored in film at NYU. She's been a ghostwriter. She's ghostwritten over 20 books. Michel is an engineer. He also has a master's degree in art history. He's still very, very much involved in lecturing about the luxury industry and business. So, these are people who didn't particularly need to go into the perfume world, and yet they did, they have, and here they are. So I think that's enough for me for the moment, because you are about to find out how convoluted this story is about to become. So let me first of all just say, please give a warm welcome to Michel and Clara, who are joining us live from Paris. Hello to both of you. How are you doing?
Hello, Darius. Well, fine. We're doing fine.
Yes, we are doing fine. Thank you for interviewing us, Darius. Really
Not at all. Thank you for your time. And I'm kind of deliberately sort of teasing because it is a fascinating story. I mean, obviously you're probably sick to death of telling this story, but I got all of the details of the story a few weeks ago, and I'm immediately, as I was listening, I thought, oh my goodness, we need to get them into the studio. We need to get all of these crazy coincidences and twists and turns of the story to the audience. Lots and lots of people tuning in and watching already. I would imagine that lots of you will have questions. First of all, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to ask a question, I always say just hang on for a bit, because if you ask it now, I may miss it. So I will let you know when it's okay to go ahead with a question. But I will say, gosh, lots of comments already. Shabir is saying hello. Navi says, I have my Cuir de Russie on for this one. Rachel says, hello, Clara and Michel. Salut. Tracy says, nice treat. Etc., etc. Lots and lots of people. Lots and lots of people. Okay.
Well, thank you for being here, lots of people.
Sorry?
I said thank you for being here, lots of people.
Well, it's because they know that there's going to be something interesting for us to talk about. Now, I had to kind of think about where we would start the timeline, the chronology, because it is complicated. And I thought, okay, well, let's actually start with you. Let's start with your entry point. And I'm going to kind of rush through one bit, and you will be very, very annoyed with me for rushing through this bit. But if you feel so annoyed that you want to kind of go back and flesh out the details, fine. But to put this very, very, very simply, in 1975, your father, Michel, your father, called Yuri Gutsatz, founded the brand Le Jardin Retrouve. Now, he was an extremely esteemed and well-known and well-regarded perfumer in his own right. Those of you folks out there who would like to find out just a little bit of what he did, just, search the internet for his name. He happens to be one of the co-founders of the Osomotech. He worked with, absolutely everybody who was anybody in the perfume world, very, very well-known name. He decided that he wanted to start a perfume brand that would actually showcase the work of perfumers and showcase the fact that it is perfumers, surprise, surprise, who actually make these things that we call perfumes. The brand had many releases, but then, as is so often the way with lots and lots of brands, it kind of fell upon hard times and it went away and it sort of dwindled. But then you two came along and thought, we would like to revive the brand. So let's start at the relatively more contemporary point of this story. Take us back to that point and the revival of Le Jardin Retrouve. How did that come about?
A crazy decision. Sort of
Go
crazy.
on.
All my family passed away within 3 years. My mother,
Oh gosh, that must have been hard.
And a few years after my father, and here we were stuck with something which I'd been familiar with all my life because I grew up in perfume, and even if I had my own way into university, marketing, business, blah blah blah, but everything was there. And with Clara, we were saying, what do we do with it? Do we take all the formulas and everything and bring it to Osomotech and say, and this is part of history of perfume?
But what was it at that point? Had the brand pretty much died?
It was there was a minute production which was sold. We still have some vintage products here with us.
Oh, okay. Go on, show us that. I'll make you go full screen for a sec. Oh, right, nice.
Yeah. And
how amazing that you just happen to have those on hand just to show.
We can.
What are you showing us there? What's the one in your hand, Clara? What's that?
It's called the Eau de Vétiver.
Oh wow, gosh!
It was a Vétiver. You can see the design. All the design were made by my mother-in-law.
Oh yeah.
Chèvrefeuille honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle.
So we've not revived either of the two.
No,
yes.
I got that. Yeah. Okay.
My father left us 2,000 formulas. So, and Maxence has been mad about that, because he's going deep into the archive.
You're jumping ahead now. People are going to think you're referring to a gentleman called Maxence Mout, who is your current perfumer. But we will get to him, I'm sure, because he is part of the many interesting twists in the story.
Exactly.
So you've got this brand which is pretty much dead.
Yeah.
But why did you feel you had to do anything with it? Why didn't you just sort of go, oh well, that's it, it's done, it's finished?
Good question.
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. We've asked around us, people in the industry, journalists and people in the industry, and they all told us the same story. They said, you have a real heritage brand in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Your father really created very beautiful perfumes. Today, so many brands are being launched without any history, any concept, maybe good fragrances, and you have a treasure.
Mm-hmm.
So you should go for it. So we went for it. It's like this. We were at a turning point also in our lives, in our careers.
Well, I was going to ask, because there must have been other careers that needed your time as well.
Yeah, but let's say that, for instance, I was, I've been working in business schools, university for all my career, then moved to private companies, worked as human resource director in luxury brands and packaging agencies that I managed. And all this led me to say, I really would like to have my own business. And we have this Sleeping Beauty who's there. So that's why I said it.
And I was just going to say, Clara, how, was it a brand that you'd been aware of even before you'd met Michel, did it make any difference? Did you even care? I mean, I don't know. It's just so curious. to put it bluntly, but yeah.
Yes. I knew the brand because this is how we met, sort of.
Okay.
Did I care? Yes, I did care.
Hang on, what do you mean you met because of the brand?
We met because I happened to not have perfume anymore, and I was looking for some perfume, and this is how we met.
What I said, you bought some perfume from
his brand.
I feel you're holding something back, Clara. What's
Okay, that's okay.
we even made a movie out of it.
Yes.
Hang on, did you really?
Yeah. No, we made a movie.
It's on YouTube, actually.
It's on YouTube for Valentine. It was 3 or 4 years ago. We said, we've got to do a movie about this. So it's not a movie. It's an animation movie.
It's an animation.
Very beautiful, very beautiful animation movie. And we should put it back on the website.
Absolutely, you should.
Yeah.
Clara, I have to ask you, so what was the Jardin Retrouve perfume that you bought then, or you were gifted, or whatever?
Sandalwood Sacré.
Which is now part of the collection, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a perfume that I immediately loved, because it was like how can I say, like a nice embrace in a nice home. It was feeling home for me. Okay. So you thought, okay, let's do this thing. So what was the next step? How do you...
Clara met my mother. I have to say that Clara met my mother, and she's already an old lady, but they hit it off. And this is so important,
Yes, that tends to be quite helpful, yeah.
It was, but she was very instrumental in the when they launched the brand with Yuri, was your father. She was the one who designed the beautiful logos, and she was also the one who was commercially involved, like doing all the fairs and all the meetings with people, etc., etc. Whereas Yuri was, this creator with lots of ideas, very much into his own world, so it's really this little complementary thing, complementary love, one could say, that made the Jardin Retrouve what it was in 1975, and I don't think we're very far away from it today.
No, but what was the point you were going to make, Michel, about your mum and Clara hitting it off?
Yeah, because it's very important. I had a link with the heritage, and the fact that Clara met her, and that they talked a lot, and that they shared. Clara always says, "I've never met your father because he passed away before both of us met, but I have a link with him, and that link with him." It goes through my mother also.
Yeah, I had to spend a lot of time in the archives, and this is because of Arlette, his mother. She kept everything, so it was like a treasure, As a writer and an artist, it was so incredible to discover this, to discover layer after layer after layer of work, care, ideas, perfumes. It was and she wrote everything, and he wrote in Russian, and I happened to know Russian, so I could read some of his writings, and it was like as a writer, I used to go very deep into the people's world, and have lots of informations coming from many places, and as a journalist also, because I was a journalist at one point, I really had this. I really had this in me. So it was so interesting to go into those details and into these stories. And at one point, we finally realized what Le Jardin Retrouve meant. And this is when you inherit something, it's sometimes very, very tricky to get it all together, to understand the depth of it. So
yes, this is a good point to sort of plant another little seed in the story, because you mentioned Russian, because your father Michel was by birth Russian. He was born in St Petersburg, wasn't he? And then he moved to Berlin, and then he moved to Paris. And I think his Russian heritage also brings in another really, really fascinating and quite sort of spine-tingling twist to the story, which maybe we'll have time to explore later. But so I like this. I like all of these, planting all of these narrative seeds everywhere, and then it'll all come together into this wonderful climax. But so then you thought, okay, right, let us do this. Let's try to do it. What was the first really, really practical step? Who did you approach to see if it would be possible to bring the brand back to life?
I think it's very, very easy. What we did is we targeted bloggers and influencers, perfume blogger and influencers worldwide.
Okay.
And we had decided with a journalist friend, Sabine Chabert, who was very close to my father. She knew him very well. She interviewed him quite a lot. And one day, I remember we sat on the table with all the existing fragrances, and we selected 7, saying those are the 7. And she said, those are the 7 that you should start with and relaunch.
Okay.
So we agreed with her, and we made some vials of those fragrances. We reproduced them, and we send them out.
How did you reproduce them? Who did you go to for that?
No. We did it ourselves, meaning we did it the old way, exactly like what my father did, and we did it with Maxence, of course. But Maxence will more about Maxence later. We bought all the ingredients, and
because you had all of the formulas, right?
We had formulas, so we bought all the ingredients. We went to the very big and the traditional ingredient dealers with whom my father was working, and we bought the ingredients. Maxence mixed the concentrate. We put it on alcohol, and we had someone produce those vials for us. So
we had the lab in our very small.
For a long time, we had the lab inside our store.
Yes.
And people.
And so Maxence ensured that they would be IFRA compliant, etc., etc.
Exactly. He used. He told me, out of the 115 ingredients that were in those 7 fragrances, he only had to change 3.
Interesting. Would you happen to remember what they are, or would you be able to share with them?
I can't. You should ask him. Next time you should have an interview with him. He would tell you. And he himself was so surprised, because he said, it's incredible. Your father formulated with very few animal-based products.
Okay.
And mostly naturals, because he really was a floral and natural and woody lover. So he got all his inspiration from the garden itself, hence our name. And in fact, his only constraint was the use of naturals, is getting more and more regulated. So he said it's already like an IFRA compliant creations that I had in my hands.
That's interesting, because my understanding was that you have to be particularly careful with naturals. The more naturals you use, the more trouble you can get into.
Yes, that's one of his big constraints.
Yeah.
Constraints. I mean, it's really a constraint.
Yeah.
But it's the way we handle it. There are certain perfumes that we could not do, like a certain rose that we could not do today. There's too much absolute of rose. But most of them we can, and we deal with
when we say that our fragrances today are over 90% natural origin ingredients. So it's a balance between naturals and synthetics from natural origin. And I think, and we're very clear about that. For instance, you can't use verbena anymore. You So you have to recreate it.
Okay. So your verbena is a very, very very clever accord then, because actually I was thinking how much like verbena it smells when I smelled it.
I think it's the one that Maxence worked the most on at the beginning, because my father used to use verbena essence from Morocco. Impossible. More impossible.
Yeah, you can't. It's impossible.
So you've got your 7, and you've created them in a form that, and just to be clear, these are all perfumes that had in the past been part of the Jardin Retrouve brand, but you were kind of making them through the skills of Maxence Mout. And then what happened?
And then we were pioneers, I would say, in a sense, because we were convinced, that was 2017, so 7 years ago, we were convinced that you could sell fragrance on the internet.
Okay.
So, and that we had, first, that's for our first point. Our second point was we were convinced that everything concerning the planet and sustainable development, etc., was really something we had to go strong with. And because that was already in the DNA of the brand from the very beginning.
And also because we are like that. Also, I mean, I've been bugging my children all their lives about that. So
the fragrance industry is an industry of waste.
Yeah,
it's an industry of waste. Crimping bottles is you throw away the bottle unless you're a collector. But once the bottle's finished, you throw it away. From the very beginning, the original fragrances, they were with screw necks.
Okay.
Now, in 2017, finding bottles with screw necks was incredibly difficult.
And matching them with the pump and matching them with the cap, it was like a nightmare.
Was like a nightmare, a real nightmare. Now, of course,
I have to ask, what was, because it sounds as though there were so many stages where you could have just looked at each other and thought, "Oh, who needs this? Let's just, let's just." But what was it that kept you going?
Ethics.
50% craziness. 50% craziness.
Complete silence. No, what? I do mean the question, but because you could have stopped.
Of heritage.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Let's put it this way.
Were you on some level? Were you, because let's just be really, really kind of open about this. The brand that most often calls itself the first niche perfume house is L'Artisan Parfumeur. That was set up in 1976, whereas you can legitimately claim that Jardin Retrouve came first because actually it was registered in 1975. There's a whole other kind of issue of where Diptyque comes into all of this, but we can put Diptyque to one side. Was there a part of you that was maybe like annoyed that this brand that you felt so strongly about was being forgotten in this current perfumery?
Yes, I felt that way. Absolutely. And I felt that way more than him because I discovered little by little, I wasn't raised in that. So I was discovering it, and I was turning to him and saying, "But your dad is the first one who did it," and he was like, "Yes," and I said, "But why doesn't anybody know about it?"
Yeah.
So it's that type of thing, that we had like a lot of ping pong going on between us. Yeah.
Dariush, I can add something. One of the very first persons we went to meet, we went to Osomotech.
Because your dad's old hoard, because he helped co-found it, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now
he believed in it.
I have the I would say the utmost respect for Jean-Pierre Léaud.
Okay.
Because he's an extraordinary perfumer. But he kidnapped Osomotech.
Ooh, controversial. Go on.
Yes. He kidnapped Osomotech. He's been the face of Osomotech for the past 50 years.
Okay.
He was only he was the leader of the team that in fact set up the classification of perfumes for the French Society of Perfumers, and who was instrumental also in setting up the Osomotech. Now,
it's a whole group.
It was a group. It was a group of
10. There were 10.
10 perfumers. It's so of course we live in a time where people like to have a face. You know, they don't like 10 people there. But you should know that. Let's take another famous perfumer. Jean-Claude Helena was part of that team.
Right.
Who knows it? Who knows it? So Jean-Claude Helena was instrumental also in setting up all this. So of course he's had his own extraordinary career, and maybe he doesn't need it, but he's part of that adventure, like my father.
So there's an element of a kind of quest for justice in all of this. Yeah. I cannot believe how quickly the time is passing. I should say, folks, those of you who are tuning in, that you're watching a live interview with Clara Feder and Michel Gutsatz of Le Jardin Retrouve. I would love to be able to put some questions from you to them as well, so feel free to fire them my way. And as always, you know, I love to know where it is in the world that you're watching from. So if at the end of your question you would also like to tag where it is that you're watching from, or say where you're watching from, obviously you don't have to do that. You can maintain your anonymity if you're working inside Fort Knox and, you know, not able to tell us where you are at the moment. And I also would like to do some smelling. We need to make some time for some smelling. But your current exclusive perfumer, Maxence Mout, comes with his own twist, or at least a couple of twists in the tale, because he is formally, he is a Givaudan perfumer, right?
Yeah, but we didn't know that when we met him.
Yeah.
So tell us that story of how, because that bit of the story is fascinating as well. Go on.
We were at a wedding. It was a wedding of one of my friends, and he was the brother of the bride, and the groom. Sorry, and he came to see Michel, and he,
having a drink, just chatting with people you meet at the wedding. Okay,
so he at this point he doesn't know who you are.
No, he just asked me, "What's your name?" And I said, "Michel Gutsatz." And he tells me, "But are you perchance linked to Yuri Gutsatz?" I said, "Yeah, it was my father." And he told me an extraordinary story. He said, "I'm a perfumer at Givaudan. And when I was doing my studies at ISIPCA, I discovered everything your father did for the industry. And I so much wanted to meet with him that I went to his house in Paris, Cours Jasmin, and just barged in and said, can I meet with Yuri Gutsatz?" And unfortunately, he was not, he was already a very old gentleman. So he met my mother, who said, "I'm sorry, he cannot receive you and host you."
And then when we decided to relaunch, we called him. "Do you want to be part of the adventure?" And he said immediately,
yes,
I want to be part of it.
I mean, that's just the most extraordinary twist of fate. Has he ever told you, or did he ever tell you, what was it about your dad's original formulations that he loved so much? What was it that resonated with him so much?
I think it's his role in the industry. It's, my father was never someone to push himself forward. But he was instrumental in many things, and in fact, Maxence loved the profile of my father, and in fact, he really discovered what my father was doing as a perfumer when we started working together, because he had, as he said, he had to understand his palette, how he was creating. For instance, the role of petit grain, the role of sandalwood in his formulations. So it's something which he learned afterwards. He got much deeper. So it's very.
So in the end, he never did meet your father. It was too late for him.
Never did. He never did, unfortunately for him.
But he certainly met his formulas very well, and he as he reconstructed them little by little, and he put his shoes in his shoes, and then he steps in steps maybe.
We get it. We get it.
Okay. and then he. then he created his own perfume. And when he created his own perfume, it was under the like aura, guidance, whatever, of Yuri. So
You can give the example of Osmont Yuan,
yeah,
his
Osmont.
creation of last year.
Exactly. With Osmont, he created Osmont, but then he put a little bit of the formula of jasmine in Jasmin Majorelle in Osmont, from a little bit of Yuri inside the Osmont, and that gave it this iris feeling, because Jasmin Majorelle has a lot of iris in it. And it's always very touching to hear him say things like that, you know.
So now the current setup is that, because you put the name of, shall we say, the original perfumer on the packaging. So for example, if I take your Cuir de Russie, at the very top, it says that it's a Yuri creation. But if I just take the one that you just mentioned, the Osmanthus, and I've got like a little sample vial here, you've got Maxence's name there. So what was the first one that was credited to him? Was it the Osmanthus, or was it the Mousse Arashiyama?
It was Mousse.
It was Mousse.
Okay, so why don't we, because we need to do some smelling as well. Why don't we talk about that one then? Talk me through the creation of this one a little bit, because this was the first sort of brand new Jardin Retrouve, wasn't it?
It was at first a candle.
Okay.
Yeah, and it came because he wanted, actually in our lab, there was this incredible oak moss that he kept on smelling and thinking, wow, this is such a great ingredient. I mean, he just fell in love with it. Then it resonated in him with the Arashiyama place, garden, where he had been a few years ago. And it was like, I don't know, something that went into his mind. And this is how he first built the candle, right?
Okay.
And then it became a perfume.
Yeah.
So when did the fig, because to me, I was a little bit thrown by the name, because actually it's a huge fig perfume as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
True.
but he wouldn't say so. For him, it's more like lentisque, and incense and aquatic notes. So it's more like he constructed it around oak moss, but with little touches here and there.
Okay.
And fig was not for him his first thought. It was just to give it more of roundness, I think.
Okay. And how did that decision come up? Because it's quite a big deal. You know, that must have been a big moment for you, for the brand, to say, okay, this is the first time we're going to kind of go off heritage, as it were. Why did you decide that was the right time?
I think, it's perfumery has been evolving over the past few years. New notes, new ingredients, new trends have come up, which my father didn't use at the time, or didn't even know. In fact, one day we told Maxence, we've been working together. That was in 2019. We've been working together for 3 years now. Why don't you create a fragrance? We need to broaden it. Of course, we've got these hundreds and thousands of formulas we could go into, but why don't you create one? And, he's very humble. And he said, could I start with a candle?
Okay.
I feel more confident in working on a candle. And then we'll see. And, he built the Mousse Arashiyama candle, and it was out of stock so fast that it was so easy afterwards to tell him, no, come on now, so let's move to the perfume.
Yes.
Fascinating. And I mentioned Givaudan. You have told me that this is a unique arrangement. I mean, I have no way of verifying this, but because you tell me it's unique, I'm sure it must be unique. That even though you are working with a Givaudan perfumer, you still keep hold of and own the formulas for your perfumes. So how did that come about? Because that is a pretty big deal.
I think it's very simple. It's very simple. when Maxence said, I agree to work with you, he said, but you must ask my boss because I must get his approval. Now, who's your boss? Well, my boss is Maurizio Volpi. And I said, but I know him. I've been working with him at some point in my consulting career. So I called Maurizio, and Maurizio told me, Michel, you're part of the family, your family. Because Yuri was working for Roux Bertrand, which merged with Givaudan. And remember, at some point, it was called Givaudan Roux.
Yep.
So he said, there's no problem, as he added, as long as he doesn't do it in his work hours for Givaudan.
Oh, is that the case? He has to do it in his own time.
On his own time. And then after that was the starting point. Next step, they included it in his work contract. Okay. So officially, he's paid by Givaudan, but he's allowed to work for us. And on top of that, it's written that all the formulas that he creates belong to Le Jardin Retrouve.
Which is, I mean, in a way, it's a very unusual situation, isn't it? Because a lot of the time you are giving him a formula, but basically you're saying, can you now make it acceptable for the 21st century? So it would kind of be weird if they then took it away from you. But no, it's still even
the new ones. I'm saying.
Yes, no, I understand, but it's still quite
normal. It's normal. But the new ones which he creates are also our IP. It's our own intellectual property.
Yeah, fascinating. And has he ever said whether his style as a perfumer has changed as a result of seeing all of your father's old formulas?
That's a very interesting question.
That's very interesting. Yeah. You should ask him.
Yeah.
You should ask him.
We never asked him, but we are going to ask him now.
Okay. So could you please ensure that the next time his contract is renewed and another clause is added to it where it says that if he gets an email from Persolaise asking him to do an interview, he is allowed to do it? Because, there are a lot of Givaudan perfumers that would say, no, sorry, I can't talk to you.
No, you should know, Persolaise, you should know that he's allowed.
I love the fact that you call me Persolaise anyway. So
Let's me call you Persolaise for one.
Okay.
I'm just saying he's allowed to talk. He's allowed to say things. He's been in the limelight every time we created a fragrance.
Yes.
And recently, Givaudan communicated a lot around the new fragrance that we've launched at Essence Violette Q and around him. So it's really official. And
what
we're saying is something that is allowed. He's allowed to talk.
Perfect time to mention the new one, which I haven't smelt. It's called, like you said, Violette Q, as in Kew Gardens here in the UK. There you go. Just go a little bit the other way, Clara. Lovely. Thank you very, very much. And is this one is this a Yuri or is this a Maxence?
It's a Maxence. And it's not a Maxence candle plus.
No.
Okay.
But it's direct perfume. Fragrance.
So I cannot challenge anything you say about it. So I'll give you the floor for the next 30 seconds. Try and describe it. Bring it to life. What kind of a violet? Is it violet leaf or is it violet flower?
It's both.
Okay, go on.
It's both. What you get first is the violet, of course. But it's deceiving violet because you think it's very pure, very nice, but it is a little bit naughty. It has some little undertone, and the undertone are cumin, cardamom, and sandalwood. And these are homages.
Yeah, homage. Yeah, or say it in French. It'll sound better if you say it in French.
Homage.
That sounds
good. to Yuri and to Yuri being in India for such a long time and discovering, his love of sandalwood. So when you smell it, it's at first you get the violet. It's a little bit sparkling violet, and you go in it, and in it is woody, spicy, very, very interesting twist. And I think it's perfectly genderless also. Yeah. It's incredibly perfectly genderless.
And we'll send them. We'll send one to you next week.
Okay, everybody, you heard it here
Yeah,
first.
we
Right?
promise.
Promise.
It's interesting. Maxence has clearly seen spicier and more interesting things happening at Kew Gardens than I ever have. But never mind. Maybe I'll ask him about that as well one time. This is a good time actually to bring in some questions. Gavin says, are the formulas and trials created with Givaudan owned ingredients? So, for instance, does he have access to the Givaudan captives, for example?
Course.
Yes,
Of course.
Okay.
has. But we choose always the top ones. It's
Yeah, we use the Givaudan palette, of course. We use all the also those that are sourced ethically. We haven't communicated about that, but all the palette is the Givaudan palette.
Okay. And I've got a pushy audience here as well. We Are Sentient says they want a bottle for everybody in the audience as well. I'll leave that one to you. We Are Sentient, as long as you don't live somewhere too far.
I know We Are Sentience. Hello.
Oh, you know we are. Okay, right.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned India, and Rachel had this question.
Oh,
Thanks,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Oh, I know that Rachel knows you. So
Yeah.
You know,
Rachel
we met
says-
in Taiwan.
We met in Taiwan. It's incredible.
All of a
I
sudden
now
she-
know that. Yeah. Rachel says, I'm very curious to know more about Yuri's time in India and how that contributed to some of the fragrance formulations and original materials. Thank you from Iowa, says Rachel. Are you able to tell us much about his time in India?
Very quickly. We lived in India. In fact, my father was sent to India by Louis Amic from Roure to set up a factory of perfume ingredients in Bombay. And at the time, what's very funny is that it was a move with the JV with the Tata Group, because he wanted to be there and not Givaudan. It was the time where they were enemies,
Competitors.
Wow.
So he set up that plant in Bombay, and he discovered the extraordinary rich tradition of Indian perfumery.
Yeah.
He even wrote articles on that.
Vetiver,
I can share it with you, because he wrote very interesting and insightful papers on that. And all the ingredients, geranium and vetiver and tuberose and sandalwood and jasmine, and he's been using it a lot afterwards.
Yes. When we restarted, we had his provider from India, and we contacted him again, and he gave us ingredients.
Except Mysore sandalwood, for instance.
Yes.
Everything he did in his time were formulated with Mysore sandalwood.
And is there some real Mysore sandalwood in your sandalwood sacré today?
So not today, but we still have. If you care to, we don't have it here, but we have a full bottle of Mysore sandalwood, which we used when we relaunched before Givaudan.
Yeah.
So could you please put that bottle into the bottle of Violette Q as well? That's not the response I was looking for. Okay. We should smell another one. Michel, I've got little vials of all 12 of them, not counting the new Violet. Just call one out, one that maybe just at this moment in time particularly speaks to you, that you would like to share a story about. I don't know, just say anyone.
It's Cœur de Russie, necessarily.
Okay, well then we can go to the bottle there. Go on, tell us why that one. Is this where maybe you can tell us the Russian side of the story and also a story related to? Go on.
Yeah, it's not the Indian side. This is the Russian side. It was created
I meant Russian. Sorry,
in homage to his own father, David, because he was 10 years old when they migrated and left his father in Russia. It's a very sad and moving story.
Yes, go on. So it was your dad, and who else left?
He left with his mother and his grandparents, paternal grandparents, meaning the one that stayed in Russia was their son, in fact. So the two grandparents left, the daughter-in-law, which is Yuri's mother, and Yuri. All four of them left Russia in 1924. They moved to Berlin. And in fact, the only memory he had of his father, because he never saw him again afterwards, never met with him. And so the only memory he had when he was a small kid was that my grandfather, who was a very pragmatic guy, had enrolled in the Red Army to save his family. And he came home every evening in his uniform. And he was wearing a leather sash, and he took my father in his arms and kept him in his arms, and he had his nose pressed on the leather of the uniform. And he told me it was his only physical memory of his father. So he had to recreate a perfume that was this leather homage. So this is the story behind Clara.
Yeah, and he wore it for his whole life, and Michel is wearing it, has been wearing it for his whole life also.
And how close is the current version to the one that you remember from before?
It's the exact same. Same. And what we didn't tell you is that we briefed Maxence saying we want the fragrances that were in the collection, when you recreate them, and when you reshuffle them and make them IFRA compliant, we want people to smell the same fragrance that they smelled maybe 10, 20, 30 years, 50 years ago.
Yeah, nobody could mess with my sandalwood.
No, okay. But I also wanted to have I just please forgive me and tell me if I have misremembered this, but wasn't there a sort of discovery that was made later on about another member of your family who had stayed behind in Russia?
Yeah, but that's David. That's David. In fact, he stayed in Russia. And
so who was he?
David, my grandfather, Yuri's father.
Okay, so Yuri's father stayed behind.
And he went into perfumery. All of them went into perfumery at the same time
in 1934,
and they didn't know it. They were both.
And so did your granddad become a perfumer as well?
Yeah, he was more a researcher. So he was working on patents in synthetics, but only for the perfume industry. And what's extraordinary is that at Aix-en-Provence, we met one of the writers of Fragrantica, a Russian lady, and she came to us and she sent me copies of the patents that my grandfather had in the USSR on perfumes. And she even brought us a vial of a fragrance manufactured by the company for whom he was working, telling me, I'm sure that this fragrance here was done by your grandfather.
And did your father find out before he passed away that his father had gone into the perfume industry?
Yes, he learned it in the 70s because a fellow perfumer one day told him, there are patents by a guy who has the same name than you. I found them. So this is he learned
that's extraordinary. That is right. I have to take some more questions from people because everybody's being so patient. Okay, let's take a question from Navilight, who says, the new release is a violet. What made you decide to go with that note? I ask, as Credit Russie obviously has violet in it too, but I'm assuming they're going to differ greatly.
Yes, they differ greatly, that's for sure.
Okay.
And that's because last year we were at Aix-en-Provence and we were launching Osomotech Yuan with Maxence, and somebody in the crowd, I don't know who, asked him, what's going to be, what do you want, what would you like to work on next? And he said, violet. And we said, go on,
go for it.
Go for it. It was perfectly in tune with his father's work, with Violette, with the Russian Violet also, which is something really important for perfumers in Russia and for his father. And so why not work on a Violet?
This is also the way that Maxence has, very, very extraordinary way of making a homage to Yuri, because he knows that Yuri loved Violet, used Violet in Cuir de Russie to twist the very harsh Cuir de Russie, and he sort of brings their both paths together.
Now, the big difference between the two is that there is no labdanum in the new Violette, so
Okay.
it's really different, really different,
Okay.
and much more, I'd say, modern. Also, it's
Right.
has a
Now, a lot of people I know like the sample sets that you do. So I should say, if people, I mean, I'm assuming they're available through your website. I know that one of your UK stockists is Liberty in London, and also you're part of the group that's looked after by Fiol, aren't you? With Sam and Josh, who very kindly gave up their time a little while ago and did an interview here. But I want to keep going with some more questions, because there are more. And now this one, I don't know what this is referring to, so sorry if, I mean, I'm assuming you will know. This is a question from Maria, who says, would you please tell us more about L'Oracle du Jardin? What was the source of inspiration? I don't know. What's that? What is that?
I'll go and take it. You answer.
Okay, this is my take on, because at one point we realized finally what was Le Jardin Retrouve, the rediscovered garden. Okay,
Okay.
it's been a long journey, and at the end of this journey, at one point we realized that Le Jardin Retrouve, the rediscovered garden, was not only the perfumes, not only one perfume, one garden of the world, but also it was the place garden in itself, the universality of it, the power of it, and the fact that it was totally a well-being place, like a safe place where you can relax, where you can feel good, where you can have good energy. So
let me make you go full screen again. So what is that?
That's L'Oracle du Jardin. And actually, I made it with a special. Here you have a special rituals that go with it.
Okay.
And all the cards are good energy. Of course, as a brand and as Le Jardin Retrouve, we have absolutely nothing to do with like predicting the future or anything. But
So are they almost like tarot cards or something?
They are. The inspiration actually is the angel cards, which are good energy cards that I found in 1992 in Albuquerque or in Santa Fe in New Mexico.
Okay.
And I've been using, so it's only, good energies and beautiful drawings taken from the
Right.
perfumes themselves.
Well, that is one twist that I wasn't so expecting. So these are cards that people can also get from you, are they? And
purification, concentration, inspiration, creativity, understanding, compassion, etc. And the rituals, and Clara's really, she's the one behind all this,
we noticed she was, when you just basically walked away and said, "You take this one." It's like, yeah.
She uses them every time when she trains sales people, or when we have visitors here, and like a meditation. And in fact, what's extraordinary is that every time people draw one of these cards, it resonates completely with that person immediately.
Oh, wow. I'm going to move on, though, because I'm going to start hearing whales singing to each other if I'm not careful. We are sentient, who is actually based in Fort Knox, says, are there any older formulas of your father's that you want to release? I mean, I'm guessing the answer to that is yes. There are still lots, aren't there?
Yeah. We have regularly also people telling us, oh, when are you going to release this one, that other one? So in fact, we will do that. Maxence is working. Maybe we can tell you like a secret. He's already working on the next fragrance. And in fact, we've given him 2 old formulas of my father, and he's working on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to get some oldies coming back again. Power Connection from New York says, will you be bringing bath products like the past rose foaming bath into your collection?
Wow, that's somebody who knows us well.
Is that an older product?
Well, yes, we used to have bath.
In 75,
and shampoo and soaps.
Oh gosh.
You know,
This is why you can't get away with anything with a Persolaise audience. Oh, that's pretty.
No. You know, whilst Clara is showing it to you, in 75, when we have the first price list, the perfumes were only one of the elements. Everything was about beauty and well-being. It was just well-being. You had incense, you had candles, you had soaps, you had shampoo, face products. You had so many things.
So there you go. Power Connection has actually written to say that they do know them and says your soaps were wonderful.
Well, how long have you been knowing the brand Power Connection One? And who are you?
Power Connection, feel free to continue the conversation if you want to. But okay, but is anything like that going to come back?
Yes,
yes. Yeah, we're working on soaps, but it's you know, everything takes a long time. Everything takes also money. It has, you know, we can't do everything at once, but we will, and we hope so. Yes, we do.
Okay. Power Connection says 1970s, a boomer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hello.
Yeah. And Tina has been waiting very, very patiently. I want to know the answer to this question, actually. Are your children into perfume as well and going to keep up with the tradition? Greetings from Berlin.
Hi, Tina. Well, not at the moment in terms of perfume, but in terms of like my son, for instance, works with us
in the team.
He's
doing all the IT and the website and the newsletters and everything. For instance, you should. Those of you who know us must have seen that for the past month, our website is completely changed.
Yeah.
And he's the one behind the change. So it's going on. Traditions going on.
You'll need to plant the perfume seeds in their minds.
Yeah.
So I cannot believe how quickly the time has flown by. Thank you very, very, very much to both of you for giving up your time and sharing this amazing story. I often end these interviews by saying I think we need to have a part 2 and a part 3. And in your case, absolutely, I think we need to do one. Maybe when we've smelt the violet. Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in and asking questions as well. Much appreciated as always. But I'm going to leave with a question. I'm going to end with a question which is actually really complicated, so we probably won't have time to delve into it too much. But you know, in a couple of sentences, when you are working on something like, you know, a heritage brand where a lot of the time you're reviving old perfumes, old formulas, what do you do to stop the product from smelling like it's just a kind of pastiche or a retro kitsch thing? You know, how do you make sure that it's modern and relevant?
Wow. Yeah.
That's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. I'll jump in.
Yeah.
The answer is Maxence.
Yeah. I would have said the same.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's the mixture that we try to show, because my father's perfumery is really intemporel, and this is what we discovered. It's really something which pleases people today, and we haven't changed anything. But on top of that, having Maxence now gives it this much younger twist, more contemporary. So it's the mixture of both, you know.
Okay. Something for us to get into in more detail next time. Thank you so much, everybody. As always, stay tuned to social media for info about new videos coming your way soon. But until then, thanks again to Michel and Clara.
Thank you too, and thank you to everybody who watched. It's really
it's been great fun, and I look forward to smelling the violet. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye.
It will be a lot